Get comfortable. Awesome.
We are all the way here.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Indeed. It's reciprocal, is it not?
It is. It is.
There is that back and forth of energy.
Yeah. Back and forth. So I have a sort of an experience to share that I would really appreciate your feedback. I went to pick up my mother from Florida and bring her here to live with me this past weekend, and it was so incredibly sad. I don't know how to describe it, except that it was so sad. I felt like the whole time I was there, which was 3 days, this sort of impending grief, sadness. And so I went with it because, I didn't want to resist it. But it reminded me of a feeling of powerlessness, sort of like helplessness, because I couldn't do anything to make the situation better. The situation didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel like it didn't feel right at all, but it felt inevitable. It was all of this, stuff back and forth. And, I realized that I was there as a, comfort for my mother, as someone to shepherd her, into the next phase. But I could not relieve that anxiety. And I was meditating. I was, um, going for walks. I was doing what I could to stay grounded and balanced. But I don't think I succeeded. So it felt a little bit like um, I had never resolved something. I don't know. Like it was there in full force, that feeling of helplessness, sadness, powerlessness, grief. And I'm still trying to process it. It's better now. We're here. She's being a real trooper. Um, but somehow I still don't feel like it's right. And maybe that's my ego. I don't know, wanting justice, or I know the anxiety was about me taking this on, taking on one other thing. And then when it sort of like happened, I don't know. I don't think I handled it very well. So I guess I wasn't disappointed. I wasn't judging myself. I just was really surprised by the amount of feeling. Like the volume of that feeling was pretty intense.
A lot of energy that wants to move.
Yeah. 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 Wanted to move. And, and, so again, I was in this place where I was aware of it and I was conscious of it, and I didn't resist it in the sense of, like, I'm not going to feel this. I just let myself feel it. But I felt it like head to toe in my body, in my breathing, and, it was all I could do to kind of keep it together for my mother so that, she didn't see me falling apart.
So one touchstone that we'll give you before we get into all of this is that the degree to which you felt the presence of that is the degree to which you'll feel the relief and the resolution on the other side. But we know that's not really enough to get you there. But it's just something to remember in this process, that it will be of a benefit. It will be helpful going forward.
Okay.
So You feel the swell coming up, yes? The
Yeah.
swelling. We want you to imagine that swelling. You feel it as energy rising. You feel it as emotion all associated with it. But we want you to conceptualize all of the beliefs and all of the thoughts that are sort of underneath the surface,
Mhm.
bubbling up and bubbling up and bubbling up and bubbling up. And you've realized that there's nothing you can really do to stop that process. And so you have to find just one point within all of that that you can open it up just a little bit and allow that to drain.
Mm. Mm.
And it will.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, so thank you. I stepped back from the we got on the plane and it was just, a lot of I mean, she was upset and I understood that, and I felt like if I just can, think about something that is good in this, that I can see something. We're together. I am here in this moment and she's my mother and I'm able to be here for, I was like really trying to focus on.
Trying a little too hard, we think. That's sort of like trying to hold a candle up in the face of a gust of wind, or trying to push up against a giant wave that is coming. Now, conventional wisdom, even unconventional wisdom, would say just find a better feeling thought. And while that can help pivot it in some cases, we just want to say that that technique isn't very effective for giant motions of energy. You really just have to sort of ride it out.
Mhm.
And so there is almost that film, almost that resistance that is over the top, and you recognize the pressure because you know at some level that if you are to open that up, there's going to be even a lot more flooding out from it.
Yeah.
And that's why people many times want to push it back down, but you feel the bigness of it, which allows you to recognize that it's pushing it away is not going to work, and trying to think one little glimmer of a positive thought in the face of that isn't really doing anything. And
Right.
so then you're looking at your toolbox and you're sort of saying, what do I do with this? And the answer is that you cannot. And that's the acceptance there that allows things to continue to move. Because if you accept it, if you really accept it, not saying that it's here forever, but you're just acknowledging the reality of your own state of being, the reality of your own energetic state, recognizing that.
Okay.
That will allow you to, instead of being overwhelmed by all of the emotion, overwhelmed by all of the energy, just start to find bits and pieces within all of that that will allow you entrance into that. And so what we mean by that is that when you're in a more receptive state, now you can be receptive and still feel the mounting pressure of that energy. We don't want you to see them as opposites. In other words, I'm
Mhm.
feeling rising of this energy and therefore I'm out of the inner flow and therefore I'm not doing it right. And so let me try to think a happy thought, and so on and so forth. And you see how that hasn't really been effective.
No.
And so it's a very important recognition, but also let's get into the work, which is allowing that to process. And so as you before we start getting into the beliefs that are coming up, and that's of course where all of the leverage and all of the shifting is going to happen, we want you to just start at that broad sense of recognizing the glut of energy that's coming up, recognize the swell of energy, and just sort of describe it a little bit here just so you can recognize it without having a filter of trying to sugarcoat it, without having the approach of trying to even minimize it, but just really recognizing the feeling and just describe it here.
Incredible anxiety, incredible, like can't breathe, um, like something horrible, impending doom, um, this sense of claustrophobic, um, uh, really sad, like painfully sad, um, hurt, like big time hurt. And like I can't handle it kind of thing. I can't, um, I'm not going to live through this almost, um, like, and then maybe a little bit of feeling sorry for myself in there with it. um, but mostly just this amazing, like, oh my gosh, I've never felt this intensely sad and hurt and upset about something. Grief, maybe too, like really can't breathe, kind of. That was the, and I couldn't sleep, and also kind of being wound tight, like relaxing, you know. I kept looking for something to do because it was like I just can't sit. It just was kept building and building and building and building and building. It was the strangest, and I still have remnants of it. So overwhelmed with emotion, like super, like, will this could never dissipate because it's so big, It's like so intense that um consumed me, I guess, is the feeling. Like it consumed me.
And
And I
that's a full recognition. We think that you
did
feel
I do
that.
it. Yeah, yeah. This is intense, Joseph. It was intense. Yeah. And it's still a little intense. It still comes up that way.
It's still present. And so we want you to visualize a little bit here this sort of pulsing orb that is this collection of belief, and you feel the energy radiating from it. And as you recognize it, sort of the outer shells start to dissolve and start to fall away. And from that recognition, just the recognition is enough, and allowing the energy to flow, you start to feel bits and pieces come loose. You start to feel it get a little bit dislodged until there is movement, and it's alive. There is consciousness, there are thoughts, there are images, there are other beliefs, there are all sorts of associated ideas tied into this. And as you visualize that coming alive and opening and sort of dissolving and starting to flow, just talk to us a little bit about the recognitions, the thoughts, the release of energy as it's happening, because that's what's happening. In other words, you've bound up all of this energy and you're recognizing it, like finding a knot in your back when getting a massage, and you feel the presence of that, and you feel this might be a little painful to work through, but by the time you work through it,
It feels
there's
better.
incredible relief.
Yeah, that's true.
And so as we're massaging it with our energy, and you're here and you're feeling that start to move a little bit, just start to speak the thoughts as they release themselves from this tangle.
Well, the first thought is that I'm not responsible for, you know, my mother's life. I can't take on her pain and her grief and her sadness. It's hers. And as much as I may be empathic or love her, and feel like that can make her better, that's not my job. So I'm aware of that. I can offer her comfort and the peace of my being. I think our home, our family, being here, I can offer her safety in that respect. I can't change her life. Although I find I still want to make it better, but
And we want you to pause for a moment because
Mhm.
you've felt the sort of layer by layer by layer by layer by layer dissolve, yes?
Yeah.
So what's at the core? You're getting to it right now.
Oh God. I don't want her to hurt. And maybe I feel like if I feel her pain enough, I can help her make it go away or something. I don't know. I don't want to see her sad because that makes me sad. I don't want to see her hurt because I feel like she's been through a lot of challenges in her life and she doesn't deserve it. I I also don't think I can carry it. It's like I'm not capable of emotionally carrying it. And maybe that feels like, well, what do we do then? If I can't fix it, what do we do? You know?
So
Um,
that's the powerlessness.
yeah. What do we do? Are we left to just misery? And or is she left to misery? I do feel like I want to rescue her, but I know that I can only be who I am, and I don't know. I don't know what's at the core of it. It definitely brought me back to a place of um, when I was a child, where she felt um, like she wasn't loved, and by her mother, by my father, now by her boyfriend, and that uh, then I had to give her the love that she was missing, you know, because she
So
didn't.
it is
Yeah.
your own power that you've given away. And that is why you feel powerless.
Who am I giving it to? Who am I giving my power to?
You think that you're giving it to her. In other words, you think that you're being strong enough or loving enough to be able to
Mitigate.
support
Yeah, 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 yeah.
that.
Okay. Mhm. That kinda rings true, that I'm giving my power away. But I don't understand that, Joseph. Like, if I am this is what confused me this past weekend. I am, this beautiful source energy flowing, and yet I chose to kinda look in the direction of powerlessness, and rather than look at my power. And I didn't know why I was pulled that way, except that this emotion was just so intense. Um, it was like I couldn't stop it. Um, and then I gave up, just trying to stop it because I figured, well, here it is. Um, so why would I choose that powerlessness? Like, that whole circumstance is about powerlessness. It's about, well, she doesn't feel loved. He doesn't feel capable of taking care of her. She's here, as we're leaving, she's like, I love it here in Florida and my life is here. It's like, I get that. I get that totally. Um, I don't know. I guess I'm still trying to work through this a little bit. I would like to look towards my power. I would like to look towards the stream of love. I would like to experience that. My intention is to, be in a place of consciousness, of openness and allowing, and that sense of
And
being.
so, as you're having these realizations,
Yeah.
do you feel that there's a little bit more of leverage here? In other words, does this
Yeah.
feel a little bit different than
Yeah.
it did?
Yes.
And so that's why we're saying you just allow it to dissolve, 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 dissolve. And then it's at this fulcrum point where you can really recognize the core of that belief. And that's when you can allow it to shift and change. In other words, you're not saying these words in an effort to affect your state of being. You're speaking these words from the place of your state of being start to shift and change.
Yeah, and this now, right now, where it is right now. Yeah. Hmm.
And so that is what is called vulnerability by some. It
So
is
yeah.
that recognition. And when you have the recognition, the inner energy is now allowed to come in and to allow it to dissolve and to shift and to change.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, it feels better. Definitely feels better than I felt this past weekend. So um, I think that's true that it is shifting and changing by recognizing. But underneath that intention of wanting and not of wanting, that intention of allowing, is accepting, is also this like fear, perhaps, that it can happen again. And um, I know I'm getting ahead of myself with that, but um, so it's not quite like stable. I'm not quite like stable in that new feeling of it's releasing or it's, kind of moving.
And that is a process. In other words, that's not something that we can switch on a dime, but when you do make that little bit of first the recognition, then the sort of recognition of the two possible paths branching off from that, then there is the momentum built in the new way. Then you are reinforcing it. Then you are allowing it to build and to stabilize, which will, in other words, these are what you could call old patterns. In other
Yeah.
words, this is not something new that's showing itself.
No, it definitely feels like the past. Yeah.
And so setting this new foundation is then going to allow it to build and to gain and gain and gain and gain and gain until it takes you into the next threshold and new experience and so on and so forth, which in not too long from now will reinforce that feeling. In other words, we started this by saying on the opposite of that is this other feeling that you're describing here. And that's what's going to show itself to you, but you just have to get a whiff of it. You just have to get the essence of it. You just have to get the feeling of it, not the thought of it, not the right words of it, but the
Okay.
essence of that shift. And
Okay.
because you have the intention to get to your core, then of course it's going to reveal itself. And you don't have to stick your head in the sand. You don't have to duck and cover. You don't have to run from it
Yeah.
because you have that clear intention. And so as the thoughts and the beliefs start to dissolve, we think you can see them more clearly for what they are rather than this sort of unknowable murk beneath the surface, which gives you nothing to work with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you have enough momentum. In other words, you've practiced this enough and have enough familiarity with the flow that we're talking about here that we think what we can walk you through here is just speaking the thought as it arises, taking a breath and releasing it, and then speaking the new thought that replaces it.
Yeah. Yeah. You can walk me through that. Absolutely. So, for instance, as you're speaking, this idea of feeling guilty about not feeling that empathy or that emotional um, like I'm not sad even though you're sad, you know.
Now just allow that thought to just
Yeah.
sit and relax, and you don't have to go anywhere, you don't have to do anything, you don't have to do it all at once, but just breathe. The energy starts to flow in, it takes that thought, it transmutes it, it allows it to transform into something new, and you start to feel a little bit of a calibration, and then you're just relaxing, continuing to breathe. And through that, something new starts to grow, and just allow that new thought to start to bloom, to start to come forward.
Hmm. My energy is my choice. My energy is me, and it's who I am, so I don't need to feel guilty about that. In fact, that may be one thing that my mother appreciates about me. I don't think she wants me to be all sad and upset because she is. I think maybe that's an old pattern from childhood, that if I feel bad, that she feels bad, then she'll feel better. And if I know that I feel good in my energy, though, in my choice of energy, of clear energy, of flowing energy, of I can have compassion and understanding and comfort and all of that, but I need to be me too. And I also do trust that things will work out for the best. I do. I trust that. I really believe that. As hard as this is to go through, I trust that what will show up will be from love. And if there are challenges, we can work through them because we do have a good communication. So, all of that anxiety, all of that angst that I was feeling, it's still a little bit here, but I kind of recognize that I can sort through it. I can work through it. Yeah.
Nice foundation.
Yeah. Yeah, it
And it
is.
doesn't feel like bouncing off the walls enthusiasm. It doesn't feel like the heavens have parted and source energy is imparting you with the gift of knowledge. It's a really subtle, intimate shift. And that is not something that we can ever get to with words. It is something you have to feel for yourself. It is that very intimate connection with energy. And almost everyone has covered up that intimacy with inner energy with all sorts of things.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's a little tender, and it's a little subtle, and it's a little new, but that's the clearest connection to source that we've ever seen from you or from anyone. And in other words, Aaron's getting the goosebumps going through because he recognizes it as well from his personal experience of having the intensity be matched. And that is when we were able to reveal ourselves to him because the intensity was so strong of the asking
Mm-hmm.
that when you allow yourself
Mm-hmm.
to be with your energy, that's when all of the building can be done. That's when the clear, in other words, we're not looking for the happiest thought that you have so that source can flow through your consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think that there are really words for that state of being that you're sort of settling into. And you feel the sort of waves and the flashes and the flash and the pan of all the old energies just sort of rippling and expressing, and just let them do their own thing as this is coming. And it'll find its settle, its settling, its settle state within your being as you just allow it to move. And so at the core is that very subtle, again, intimate, personal feeling. And that's where the energy is.
Hmm. Yeah, there's an opening, or I want to say, sense of peace, a sense of, okay, things may not look perfect, on the outside, but there's a trust or a knowing that that doesn't really matter, in a sense, that it's the, I have the ability to move through it and not be consumed by it. That's what I'm feeling right now. Yeah. And it, I think, is the sort of the overwhelming emotion I'm referring to, is almost a frame of mind when I'm in touch with, um, who I truly am, when I'm feeling myself, when I'm feeling that core energy, when I'm feeling that essence. Yeah, I appreciate you saying, Joseph, that it's not like this sense of like, you know, okay, I'm strong now, it's it's that more subtle feeling of just truth flowing, kind of conscious awareness, balance flowing.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Many
yeah,
times when you see people who have that facade up of that strength,
yeah,
it is in an effort to protect and avoid
yeah,
that actual intimate shifting of energy.
yeah.
And so what you're feeling, that is the true strength. It is that clear commitment to the energy, which is going to continue to build in strength and momentum until it does become a mind-blowing, amazing experience.
Mhm.
But as in all things, you just have to start out at that subtle connection to inner energy.
Yeah, yeah.
And so now you can let it go because it is not your responsibility.
Mhm.
And even if it were your responsibility, you don't have the wherewithal, the knowledge, or the ability to make those shifts for another person.
Yeah,
And so when you're here in this very clear receiving of source energy, of that consciousness,
yeah,
then all things around you are conspiring in and through you for the benefit of everyone around you. And that's the strength that you've been seeking to offer in the
yes.
first place.
Oh, that's so perfect.
And do you see how beneficial this process is? Because what you could call a false belief is what was at the core of that, and you built upon it and built upon it and built upon it and built upon it, and then you didn't like the Frankenstein's monster that you've created, so you've tried to reject it, but it was still there, reminding you, hey, there's a whole world on the other side of this. And so that's what you're recognizing here. That's why it's a good thing.
Yeah. I knew you were gonna say that in some at some point tonight. But yes, now I actually see it. It's appropriate to say it, because I was really wondering, how could any of this be good? I really was. But now I can really see it's because on the other side, this new perception allows new energy to flow, allows in the shifts that, we really truly do want. Yeah, that we thought we had to sort of fight our way through to get to, or struggle through, or suffer through, in these false beliefs, as you say.
Or hold tenaciously to affirmations, even in the face of misery.
Yeah.
Even positive, what is called positive thinking, has been turned into drudgery.
it has so much. And to see that, like, I came through this. Like, I am thankful, I am appreciative, um, because I kept thinking as I was feeling it, as there was also this thought, like, I know I have guidance, I know I have source energy, I know I have my guides and helpers, I know I have love, I know I have, it's sort of like, even though I was feeling this overwhelmment, there were moments like, I know you're there. It was kind of like that light in a storm or something that I knew. And I did say, to myself, allow the energy, and, come through for a minute or two. So, yes, I guess by way of all of this, I wanted to just say that thank you again, because I appreciate the fact that I can process this with you and get that clarity and that sense of truth.
That is why we are here.
Thank you.
Indeed.
And power, really, because it was all about this sense of powerlessness and hopelessness. And and I'm going to examine this, giving my power away a little bit, because I think I do that because it makes me feel equal sometimes, or with other people, rather than like I'm more powerful, or I don't know what that feeling is. I have to work through that a little bit, but um that isn't even what it's about. Truthfully, there isn't an imbalance. It's just that I know who I am. So um yeah, lots to be learned here, or not learned, but
Well,
um
you'll experience it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
don't worry. You will see the realization. You will see the process that you just went through here playing itself out in your physical experience. But
yeah,
because you've already gone through the energetic work, you know how it's going to play out. You have a feel for these things. You know which direction the conversations are going to go, and you have an awareness of how it's going to play itself out.
yeah, yeah.
And that is when you will recognize power, what power really is. The power to have positive influence, the power to uplift others, the power to be of service, the power to do well for others and to bring them into that recognition and that realization. It doesn't come from bearing the cross. It doesn't come from taking that misery on. It comes from that subtle connection and that subtle reflection that you have, the recognition. And then it builds. And then it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds and it continues to grow and express and attract conversations and attract people and attract new ideas and attract new emotional experiences. But because you haven't made it dependent upon the physical experience, because your mother doesn't have to be in the room having this conversation with you or with us, because you allowed to take your own power back and to allow that energy to shift and change,
Hmm.
well, you're going to see all the evidence of that. It's going to just become more meaningful and more pronounced and more developed and more refined and more precise and more experiential and more realized as you just let it play itself out in your physical experience.
Right.
And that means it's just going to get better and better and better.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Thank you. It's so awesome.
Very much.
All right. Well, that was a big one. So I really thank you. Um,
So treat yourself well.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, I got my tea. All right. Well, thank you so much, Joseph.
Very much so. Just allow things to settle. Just allow the chips to sort of fall where they may. Allow the thoughts to just play themselves out. And every time a little storm cloud comes up, it'll fade away, and then you'll get really good at that process.
Mm,
Things will come up and you'll release them. Things will come up and you'll release them until there is a stillness, until there is that oneness consistently. And it takes a little bit of getting used to,
yeah,
but you'll get there.
I will get there. Okay.
It just takes a little bit of time for the thoughts to rearrange, the beliefs to rearrange, and the emotions will be moving, and you'll feel all sorts of things coming up and releasing, coming up and releasing, coming up and releasing as you go forward from the shift that you've just accomplished. And as it matures, that's when you'll enjoy it the most.
Mm. Well, thank you. I feel great, 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 great love right now. So thank you for that.
Indeed, that's the energy clearly present always.
Awesome.
Anything else here?
No, thank you.
We are complete. Hi.
And boy, if I could, I'd give you a big hug.
Virtual energetic hug.
Thank you so, so much.
Definitely.
Yeah, that was so great, so kind, so perfect. Just, what a gift. I mean, you are such a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you too. I very much appreciate it. And, you
Please.
know, from that shift in my experience, I feel like I've been in that place, and
Yeah,
it seems like a new person sometimes. It feels like a new feeling, I guess, but
yeah.
it'll definitely continue to mature, as Joseph was saying.
Okay, I'm ready.
Yay.
All right. Well,
All
thanks.
right.
Can't wait to hear
Absolutely.
your new stuff.
Oh my gosh. Can record in 5 days is when the new equipment is coming in.
But it's coming. All right.
Yeah. Yay.
All right. Well, I'll
All
be in
right.
touch. Thank you.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye.